Welcome to the 443rd episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest humid Florida. I guess every place is hot in the United States, but we're seeing some pretty humid conditions. High 80s in the mornings, high 90s, mid to high 90s in the afternoon. But still getting my workouts in, still getting my runs in. Just getting up a little bit earlier to get more of the darkness before the sun starts to come up and kind of heat things up. So the new German Shepherd 3.0 is doing well. He's up to about 4 miles. We have less stops. We're making better time. Then I bring 3.0 back and finish up with a couple more miles. So recovery from the Silver Rush 50 is over, and it's time to start building the mileage back up for the upcoming fall races, 100K in October, a swim run in November, and then the big old 100-miler in January. So it's all exciting. We are headed out to Leadville next week to participate to volunteer for the 100-mile race. Earn some brownie points for the upcoming lottery. We're going to do some bag stuffing and then head on out to the day of the race on out to Hope Pass, hike up to Hope Pass. That's about a 6-mile hike, and observe the terrain. It's one of the hardest climbs of the 100-mile race, so we'll get to see that both in the daylight and the dark. We'll get to see the people and how they look and what they do, and hopefully gain a little insight for our future, live and learn, so to speak. See one, do one, teach one, maybe, who knows? But so we're looking forward to getting back to Leadville. We just finished Camp Mom Mom. In case you don't know what Camp Mom Mom is, and if you want to sign up, well, you can't because it's a private Camp Mom Mom. Every year when Nathan goes off to University of Houston football camp, Addie and Caleb come in for Camp Mom Mom. In the past, we've driven it with a couple dogs, or a dog. But this year, Addie flew in with Caleb, and we celebrated Camp Mom Mom. And we've been very, very busy. We went on an airboat ride through the Peace River tributaries to look for alligators, and we saw a lot of alligators, baby ones, big ones, all kinds of alligators. The airboat ride was pretty cool. Went over some sand areas. Didn't know they could do that. So that was a little surprise for us. We went to Moat Marine, which is up in Sarasota, which is they do both educational and research on marine animals. And we got to see the giant manatees weighing 1,500 pounds living on romaine lettuce. Yes, you can weigh 1,500 pounds if you only eat lettuce. So calories are calories. They do count. We also saw otters play and some sharks and sea turtles. And so that was a whole lot of fun. So we came back and got in Mom Mom's endless pool, turned on the current and pretended like we were sea otters. We dove for sharks like the scuba divers would, jumping out of the little raft, and had a great time in the endless pool. That's a current pool that I have that I've actually trained for triathlons in when open water was not available. And we also did a beach day. No sharks or dolphins there, but had fun playing in the sand up at Boca Grande Beach. So always a fun time at Camp Mom Mom, especially when Caleb comes to town and Addie. So we had a great time. Part of Camp Mom Mom is celebrating Mom Mom's birthday. So Addie did bake me a chocolate cake. Everybody knows I really like chocolate cake, but you can make them healthy style. And we shared over a couple days the cake. So not too much cake had by all, but enough that we all got our chocolate fill. Other things that we had with the 3-year-old would include zucchini and cauliflower and tofu, white beans, pinto beans, bok choy, green cabbage, mushrooms, sauerkraut, red and green peppers, yellow peppers, kale, rice, a little bit of pasta one night, sourdough bread made in Mom Mom's kitchen, and oatmeal. So, yes, you can eat healthy with a 3-year-old. There were no kids' meals. They were all adult meals that we shared with the kid. And avocado was in there. I don't know if I had that in there, but you don't have to make special kids meals, and they shouldn't come out of a box. And we love helping families learn to educate their children and help them with textures. And there's some things that Caleb didn't like at first. Now that he's 3, he actually likes lettuce. The texture was kind of funny. Sometimes mushrooms are kind of funny. Sometimes blueberries are kind of funny. Sometimes strawberries are better than blueberries. But he loves mango. I think I may have left that out as far as the fruit content, because we had mangoes, strawberries, blueberries, yellow dragon fruit, cantaloupe, and grapes, and apples while he was gone, or while he was there. So he loves all fruit. And we had a little bit of sugarcane juice. Caleb didn't have any kombucha, but I had some kombucha. And after last week's podcast, if you haven't heard about the benefits of that, I'm trying some kombucha trials in some members as well. And also had some fermented mushroom drinks. So all was good. And we had a good time, both being very active all day long and at mealtime. I got to tell you that nobody had any trouble sleeping with the days that we had. Despite our added activities, we kept our morning runs in strength training workouts, so people say, well, I couldn't do this because I had company, or we went on vacation and we couldn't do this. But morning runs and strength training is paramount for us being a healthy family. And so we did that throughout the vacation. There was a recent study looking at decreased cancer and cardiovascular mortality associated with aerobic activity and strength training. Traditionally, people are told to do aerobic activity to help decrease cardiovascular disease and decrease the recurrence of cancer, and that is true. The question is how much always. There's never been a study showing too much, okay? So forget about getting too much. Most people ask, how much can I have of food, but how little do I have to do of exercise? And it was quite interesting after looking at some of these studies, and I'll talk about it a little bit. We have a membership practice, and we're not meeting our goals, and I'm not satisfied with how my membership is doing with these goals either. So we're going to have a little talk with a lot of people to try to bump up. Hopefully some of the members listen to this podcast, and I know they do, and they can assess whether they're actually up to snuff when it comes to recommendation. But this was a Spanish study looking at current guidelines and to see whether or not moderate aerobic activity, moderate to vigorous aerobic activity, moderate strength training, which is better, what combination, is there a combination? And so they basically compared not doing much to doing one of these activities. And it was a nationwide cohort study that they looked forward, so it wasn't backwards, they looked forward into the activity of these people. And there were 500,705 adults. The mean age was 46 years of age, 58% were women, and they looked over a 10-year period. And I think it's important to start to define these a little bit. So when you look at moderate aerobic physical activity, the recommendation 150 minutes to 300 minutes, so 2.5 to 5 hours. And vigorous physical activity, 75 minutes to 150 minutes, which is an hour and 15 to 2.5 hours per week. That's the 2.5 to 5 hours is also per week. And then strength training sessions 2 days a week. So they looked at combinations of this to see which would be the best. And what they found was that there was a decrease in mortality if you did at least 75 minutes of moderate physical activity and over 150 minutes of vigorous activity plus strength training. The optimal cancer mortality risk reduction was greater than 300 minutes of moderate physical activity, 0 to 75 minutes of vigorous physical activity, and 2 moderate strength training sessions a week. And that lowered all-cause and cancer mortality by 50%. There was a 3 times lower incidence of cardiovascular mortality if you did this amount of exercise. So that would be greater than 300 minutes, which is 5 hours of moderate physical activity, 0 to 75 minutes, so an hour and 15 minutes of vigorous physical activity, and 2 strength training sessions a week. And to lower the risk of all-cause mortality, cardiovascular, cancer, at least you had to have some combination of both moderate to vigorous physical activity, and strength training. So you need all 3 to get the best. So what is these things? You know, people say I exercise, or I walk, or I do strength training. And, you know, sometimes I'm a little bit lax on the strength training episodes. You know, what is that? When we talk about strength training, we're talking about 8 to 10 different exercises with 8 to 12 repetitions of those exercises till you get muscular fatigue, so you feel like you can't do much more. So you have to use enough weight that you feel it, and you have to do a variety of different exercises, and the idea is to work different body parts so that you kind of cover upper and lower body. There was no discussion of, you know, what day they did what. You know, do you do everything, you know, one day, legs, you know, people do legs one day, arms one day. Doesn't really matter as long as you're getting the 8 to 10 different exercises each day, 8 to 12 reps, until you're, whatever that body part is, fatigued, that you don't want to do it anymore. And if you haven't felt that fatigue, it's kind of like your arms are heavy and you really don't want to hold them up after you're done. When you first start strength training, even if you've laid off for a week or so, you're going to be sore the next day. The muscles are tender to touch, may last a couple days. That gets better the next week, following weeks. It's going to get better each time. Not saying to lift to the point where you injure yourself, but it's okay to be sore. When you look at moderate to vigorous aerobic activity, aerobic means using oxygen. So you're actually burning fat when you're doing this, and your heart rate is not, less than 85% of a predicted maximum heart rate, most likely in the range of about 65 to 75%. The moderate to vigorous activity is 3 to 6 metabolic equivalent of activity, which means, translated, that if you were walking, you need to cover 3 to 4 miles per hour. That would be 4 METs, and that would be considered moderate. Other activities would be vacuuming, washing windows, mopping, pushing a power mower, biking at 10 to 12 miles per hour, and playing doubles tennis. So that is moderate activity, a moderate intensity. Vigorous activity, again, we wanted to get about an hour and 15 minutes hike a week, would be hiking up a mountain, jogging 6 miles per hour, shoveling, carrying heavy loads, biking 14 to 16 miles per hour, playing basketball, singles tennis, lap swimming, jumping rope, playing soccer. So those are activities of vigorous physical activity. You know, so when you're 6 miles per hour, that's, most people in my practice are really having trouble getting 3 miles an hour, which would put them down to moderate. So when I looked at my practice, just roughly, and I have a small membership practice that I know everybody and I know what they do, and when we see them, we talk about their physical activity and we suggest physical activity, and we do running programs for people, we do strength training programs for people, we do membership wellness challenges every month where we send them do this every day. So we talk about it all the time, and we have a mobility class on Mondays, a yoga class on Wednesday. So we talk about this movement practice. And I would say about 28% of my practice gets vigorous activity enough a week, and strength training is probably even less. So that's in a practice where it is our goal. I have a wellness practice, and despite my best efforts, I'm probably only getting 28% compliance with what's going on in this study. Some people play pickleball. It's the new rage. When I'm running past this one park, I see people playing pickleball. And so the question is, well, what kind of activity would pickleball be? So there was a study that looked at, and the people that were involved in this study were actually pickleball players. 53 people, 29 years of age to 73 years of age, and they would warm up either walking or doing a little jogging on the court and hitting some balls, and then they played an hour. And 22 played single, the rest of them played doubles. They wore an accelerometer. People got about 3,322 steps on average per hour. 80% of singles play got moderate aerobic activity. The rest was light physical activity. Doubles pickleball play people got 2,790 steps per hour. Only 50% were moderate, and the rest were light activity. So, the pickleball court is smaller, and there's less movement, and people tend to hit the ball to each other because they like the volley, and so there's less. They looked at heart rate with pickleball, and only 40% of people got their heart rate to a moderate level, 30% light, and there were 30% vigorous if they played substantial amount of time, enough that they could actually get their heart rate eventually up to where they need it. So if you've ever done anything, when you start out and you looked at your heart rate is usually low, and it goes up as you exercise, and the more you're fatigued, the hotter you get, the higher your heart rate goes. So it takes a while to get your heart rate up to a peak. You just don't start out and get to a vigorous, to a 75% predicted maximal heart rate. So 70% of the time, people would get exercise that would be working towards that 150 minutes per week that's suggested for cardiovascular health. So if you played 4.5 hours a week of pickleball, you would get your physical activity guidelines, bare minimum for cardiovascular. So again, it is... people don't do as much as they think they can, or they think that they do. It's quite ironic. People report eating much less than they do, and they report exercising much greater than they do. I wonder why that is, the perception. I guess it's a perception of effort, perhaps. Anyway, so that was that study. And again, my practice is geared towards wellness, and we're still struggling. I've had a couple patients over the last week come from an oncology visit where they were given options for therapies, and nutrition was never even addressed, let alone exercise. And it's huge when it comes to cancer and oncology. Normalizing body mass index and exercising is huge when it comes to cancer prevention. And probably cancer is one of the biggest diseases where people feel like they are, it happened to them. Don't know why, not in control, happened to me. Things have to be done for me because I have no control. So the doctor says I have to go through this therapy, this therapy, this therapy in order to improve my chances of survival. But no one is given, this is what you can do to increase your chances of survival and decrease your risk of recurrence and actually live a healthier life all around. And I've talked about this many times in the podcast, that who cares if you're cured from your cancer if you die from cardiovascular disease? We're not individual diseases. We're humans. We can get everything My mother has a terrible family history of cardiovascular disease, and she got lymphoma. Who would have guessed it? If you had to predict, people say, I have a terrible genetic history of cancer, and therefore I'm going to do all these things focused on cancer as far as screening, but they don't do anything for cardiovascular disease health, or maybe don't do anything for anything. They just assume their genes are bad, and it is what it is. But diet and exercise is truly important if you want to live a healthy lifestyle, disease-free, stay out of the doctor's office life. A few months ago, I had Travis Macy on my podcast, and he had written a book with his father on their journey with Alzheimer's. And one of the things that was highlighted in the book was he and his dad did the Echo Challenge Fiji together on a team with two other people, with his dad struggling with Alzheimer's. And you can see the show, I believe it's either Netflix or YouTube. I believe it's YouTube, that you can watch the season of Fiji, and I believe it's 2017, 2018. But during that show, they also highlighted other athletes, and there were 4-person teams, and I believe at least one of the people had to be a woman. But there was one Spanish team that was also highlighted, and the woman on the team's name was Emma Roca, and she's great. She was a great friend of Travis Macy and his family. They've done echo challenges together. He even paced her to win a Leadville 100-mile marathon in the past, and so they've been great friends. And he recently did a podcast tributing Emma Roca and replaying an interview that he had with her, because Emma passed away from vulvar carcinoma. And during that podcast, the podcast was recorded, I believe, in 2018, 2017, and I'll put a link to that podcast in the show notes. They talked about, the different endurance races that they had done together or by themselves, and what it meant for her as far as having a diagnosis of cancer. And basically, most people say when they get to, do an Ironman or an ultra run, I get to do this. I get to go out and spend a day in the woods, or just a day doing a marathon or an Ironman. I'm choosing this. It's, people say suffering, but I'm choosing to press my body to limits and suffer a little, but it's only a day. It's only 30 hours. And I choose to do it. It's not something that I have to endure that came upon me. And by doing these endurance events, you learn to troubleshoot. And they talked about this. You learn to troubleshoot, you learn to endure, you learn to accept that things happen that weren't planned despite your best efforts, and how to deal with them and not fall apart. And just, roll over and somebody has to take care of me or pull me, do things for me that I have no choice over. So it's learning that you can be in control, and you can choose your mental outlook on things. You can choose how you wish to troubleshoot and how you wish to face things. And so anyway, Emma developed vulvar carcinoma, which is extremely rare, and ended up having, major surgery and radiation and chemotherapy. And it appears that her course was about, maybe 2 years before she passed away at age 46. They talked again, choose to do hard things. And so when bad things happen, you have the tools to handle them. And I think that was a very important message, and a reason why we should push ourselves to things that maybe aren't just as comfortable. People get all wigged out if they can't have, pasta, rice, and bread for a week, or they have to, limit not having something in order to maybe lose some weight or normalize their body mass index, or people moan about plant-based nutrition because I can't have this or can't have that. And the reality of it is you can have anything you want. You're choosing not to. It's not forced upon you, but you're trying to make yourself healthier. Same way with exercise. You're choosing to exercise and sweat a little bit, put yourself into, push yourself a little farther than you think you can, in order to realize that, hey, you can do more than you think you can, and you can tough it out and troubleshoot. But this vulvar cancer, again, if you were going to say something happened to me that I really didn't choose, is probably, somewhat one of those. I'm sure that there may be some genetic role in things. But one of the biggest things that we can do is not only what we eat as far as our environmental exposures. Nothing happens in a vacuum. So perhaps there was some environmental exposure that Emma had, or a nutritional exposure that she had, along with a genetic predisposition that she had. Who knows? But know for sure that things don't happen in a vacuum. They don't just happen to you. There's something that perhaps you could learn from, or something from her, or something that you could avoid. And one of the things is that we don't ever talk about is things that we wear. And again, in endurance running and exercise and yoga, people wear stretch pants and sports bras. And in this era of trying to be environmentally friendly, a lot of plastics are recycled to make these products. And it has been recently determined that a fair amount of shorts, athletic leggings, sports bras actually contain the bisphenol BPA, or bisphenol A, which is an endocrine disrupting synthetic chemical that was designed in 1957. We know it as being, having water bottles containing it, baby food containers containing it, water pipes, food cans. If it's not organic, cans are lined with this in the United States, unless the can says otherwise. Even IV bags people get at the hospital. Some plastic equipment used in the hospital are BPA lined. Dental sealants just say no, BPA. Babies' toys you have to be careful with. Kitchen not so much appliances, but kitchenware, whether it's plasticware or serving things. Thermal receipt paper, epoxy resins, fast food containers and packagings. So these BPAs bind to estrogen receptor and modulate genes, and they can turn off certain things that help the body get rid of cancers. Our body's always looking around, trying to stamp out abnormal cells. These things can actually trigger the body's, things to go, the genetic disruptors, so that we can't correct things. Different cells grow more, so it's growth modulators, turning on genes that cause cancer. And it's been found to be in these leggings. And so for starters, one of the studies, sports bras, and I'll put a bit of a link in the show notes again, but Athleta, a brand that people know and love. Pink, Asics, North Face, Brooks, All in Motion, Nike, and Fila have all had sports bras associated with high levels of BPA. Again, you sweat, you wear these things, they break down. So, and it's not easy to find. I had to search for the list. It tends to be in things that have a combination that are polyester based, that also have spandex in them. If you look and you see they're made from recycled materials, beware, because again, plastic bottles most likely, are going to have BPA in them. Leggings and shorts, Patagonia tights, Kohl's, Tech Gear, Capri, high-rise tights, Athleta, Salutation, Stash Pocket tights, Adidas Daily Run tights, Nike One Tight Fit full length, Champion Base Layer Double Dry, Stinky Betty, I can't remember, Champion Nike Dry Fit Tight, and Fabletics athletic shorts. So it's pretty scary when it comes to things that you wear. And again, if you're an endurance athlete and you're wearing these things for prolonged periods of time, women typically don't wear underwear under these tights. Your jog bra is closely fitting. Staying in it for a long time can really play havoc. So I would encourage you to try to do your homework and look to see what things have it, and replace them as you can, and certainly not sit in things for a long periods of time if possible. The other thing that we have to worry about sometimes are even contaminants in things that are supplements. I get a email asking me about niacin, and would I talk a little bit about if niacin is good, bad. Niacin is a B vitamin. It's a water-soluble vitamin. Water-soluble vitamins are decreased absorption if people are heavy alcohol drinkers, so that can cause a vitamin B deficiency. The RDA for niacin is 16 milligrams for men and 14 milligrams for women. At one point, niacin was thought to lower triglycerides. Was thought to lower LDL but raise HDL. And numerous studies, including Cochrane reports, have shown that despite some increases in HDL, there's been no decrease in cardiovascular events with supplementation of niacin. And actually, excessive amounts of niacin can not only cause hot flashes, but can cause liver damage, can cause glucose intolerance, early onset diabetes, and headaches, and all kinds of other things. So overdosing on it is a real thing, that you shouldn't really do. The sustained release ones can be worse from a liver standpoint, cause hepatitis. So certainly if you have liver disease, you should stay away from it. But the reality of it is it's in food. So you get plenty in food. And it's really easy to get on a plant-based diet. Breads, fortified flours are usually fortified with B vitamins. Nut, seed, legumes, bananas are some of the biggest sources. Corn tortillas. So if you do corn masa, buy corn masa, cook corn especially, because when you do corn masa, it is a cooked corn that's dehydrated, cooked with a calcium hydroxide. And so corn tortillas, not tostados, because we don't want those, but plain corn tortillas made out of masa, high levels of niacin. But good old chia seeds and hemp seeds, 8.8 milligrams of niacin in just 100 grams of chia seeds, hemp seeds. Sweet potatoes, a cup gets you 2.4. White potatoes get you 5.6 milligrams. Avocados get you 3 milligrams. Peas are a big source. There's some great dehydrated pea protein crumbles out there now that are just pea from peas, and they're actually very good. We had some last night in a cabbage dish. They give a little meaty texture, a little burger type texture to foods. Again, a good source of niacin. So you can get adequate amounts of niacin eating a healthy diet very easily. You don't have to worry about taking a supplement. You don't have to worry about overdoing it. And that's the problem with supplements, is that, when you have a concentrated form, it's not regulated. You don't know exactly how much you're going to get. You might be getting a lot. You might not be getting any at all. But you don't want to get toxic. And a lot of the supplements, I really don't like when people do multi-vitamin supplements that are in high doses, because you don't know what you're getting. And chances are you're getting a lot of something and not very much of something else. And it's not the combination that you want. So I would encourage people to probably, if they're going to take, if you're taking vitamin C, take vitamin C. If you're going to take vitamin D, take vitamin D. If you start putting things together, it's hard to tell what you're going to get. The other thing out there, as far as toxicities, there's a supplement called cesium chloride that people have taken as an anti-cancer type supplement. It's supposed to alkalinize your blood and decrease your risk of cancer. There have been several companies that have had warnings to them because of increased cardiac toxicity and arrhythmias. American Nutraceuticals, Complete Water Minerals, Daily Manufacture, Elemental, Essence of Life, Mineral Stone are a few that have had recalls because of cardiac toxicity. So again, most nutrients we can get with our food very, very easily. And you got to be really careful when you take excessive amounts, that you know what you're doing. You're under somebody's care. We all like to treat ourselves and fix ourselves. It's kind of funny. We all like to treat ourselves and fix ourselves with something you can swallow that doesn't require much effort, and you can still do what you want otherwise when it comes to nutrition and exercise. But again, no pain, no gain, no effort, not near as much in the way of improvement. So back to it. Normalize your body mass index. Exercise moderate to vigorously. Do strength training twice a week, and eat a well-balanced, colorful diet, rich in fruits and vegetables, and some grains on the side, and you'll do quite well. And don't be afraid to push yourself a little bit. And I would encourage everybody to look and see what they're actually doing. There was another study looking at smartwatches and decreased incidence of heart failure because they remind people to be accurate about what they do. When you really look at what you do, you realize maybe you're just not doing that much. So I love Garmin devices. I like the Garmin Connect app. I can see exactly what I'm doing every day. It shows my heart rate. It shows my cadence. It shows my distance, my steps, and I can get an accurate look at what I'm actually doing as opposed to I think I'm doing pretty good. So we can all improve. I'm back on the strength training mode myself to try to improve that and dedicate more time to strength training, especially getting ready for some of these longer races. But I would encourage you to look at your weaknesses and step it up. And if you're in my practice, you know that I'm going to be stepping it up and bugging people to step it up more since I did this little query. And if you'd like to be part of our practice, go on over to drdulaney.com. You don't have to live in Port Charlotte. You can live anywhere. We do over the phone and Zoom. You have access to our website with all our recipes and our wellness challenges. And private Facebook group. It's doctordulaney.com. Email me at Jami, Jami, at drdulaney.com to find out more. The prices are, for what you get, my phone number, my email, we talk to you, we do plans. I mean, you can't beat it. You can't go to the grocery store for what you paid for us for complete medical care for a month. And yet we don't take insurance because insurance doesn't cover wellness. They cover testing and they cover disease, and that's not what we're about. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.